If you live in America, there's a chance you have an Applebee's in your city. In fact, there's a chance that you have a hell of a lot of Applebee's in your city. Applebee's is everywhere in America. Every city. It's that restaurant on the corner in the busiest intersection because they're a corporation. What do you know? They can get the best spot. Now, if you're not from America, Applebee's is a middle-of-the-road restaurant that allows a very social atmosphere because they put the bar front and center in the middle of the restaurant and then everything around it. So it has a social atmosphere. Keep that in mind because it's a restaurant that people go to and you go, why the fuck do people go to that restaurant? Because if you've been to an Applebee's, you have tried their food. Their food comes out like it's been microwaved. All the water sucked out from the vibrations of the microwaves. And there's nothing left but this dry piece of meat. I was a fan back in the day when Applebee's still had a little bit of class of the sampler platter. You know that appetizer sampler platter that they have in all of those restaurants like Applebee's, TGI Fridays, Macaroni Grill. I don't even know if some of these things are still around. But that appetizer sampler platter, I got it because one, I'm a lover of mozzarella sticks. 2, I'm a lover of chicken tenders. 3, and who doesn't love a good Irish nacho? But as Applebee's began to become this bigger and bigger corporate machine, the food became worse and worse. These plump, juicy buffalo tender chicken strip thingies now were just hard as a rock. You could almost invent the wheel with them by hammering the rock into a wheel. I didn't really think about that one, but you get the point. It could be a tool. And the corporate machine just grew and grew and grew. Now there's Applebee's everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's an Applebee's, an Applebee's, an Applebee's. And just like Applebee's, so has Joe Rogan and his friends become the Applebee's of comedy. Joe Rogan, he was just a sweet little guy doing some DMT mushrooms and smoking a joint. The Curiosity, I guess people say his comedy was better back when, but, I don't believe that. But let's just give it. And as Joe Rogan grew and grew and grew, so did the Joe Rogan comics that he brought on. And now it's almost like you can't go an episode of the podcast without it being a fucking comedian. That's not funny. And the point is as Joe Rogan grew, and his comedy and his comedy circle and the mothership, and as he got bigger, the quality of his comedy got shittier. And the quality of comics that he's bringing with him have gotten shittier. And I tried to film a reaction to a Mark Normand video or stand-up special that was on YouTube. And I lost it the first 2 times because I couldn't believe that this guy is a comedian. And then finally I filmed it good and YouTube copyrighted it, and I can't show it to anybody now. It's the lost Mark Normand tape. Maybe if I get famous, I'll start a Patreon, and that'll be the first one. But anyways, this guy, Apologia Comedia, captured my thoughts very, very well in the Roganspehere, Unfunny Comedians Joe Made Famous. So let's check this out, and let's get a reaction.
It's not what you know, but who you know is especially true when it comes
to
Joe Rogan's
That's life right there.
The comedy scene is booming, and those rising to the top all share a common connection, a close relationship with Joe Rogan. This phenomenon has become so mainstream within the podcasting comedy realm that it's even earned its own name, the Roganspehere.
Okay.
The premise is simple. If you're a comedian and close friends with Joe Rogan, or even if you've been...
Dude, I get Ari Shaffir. I understand that he wants to be edgy. There's people like, I want to do that. Sometimes I like to have fun. I just go into public and I say like random things about politics just to see who will turn around, or, I just want to, see if people are paying attention. But I think Ari is just, I guess if you explain my view of Ari, I just think he's fucking gross. And I'm not trying to be mean. That's just my opinion. That dude just like pisses like, during the podcast in a bottle in front of all of his friends. He just looks dirty, like he doesn't shower, he doesn't care about his appearance. And then he just like does fucking fucked up shit to his friends. No wonder Joe and him are friends, man. They just kind of, and Joe always defends this guy, and I don't understand it, man. But you know, you should have forgiveness too. What the fuck am I talking about? Let's go.
Been a guest on his podcast multiple times, you have a significant advantage in achieving success compared to others in the field. While some comedians within the Roganspehere are undoubtedly talented and would have found success on their own,
Chain, baby.
Network accelerates their careers much.
Mark Norman is just that annoying guy that fucking talks and always wants to get you to laugh with dumbass jokes. You know what? I'm gonna stray from the path of enlightenment for just a second. I have problems with this, but I'm gonna stray for the path, man. This guy right here, people saying his comedy is funny is why people don't trust white people. It's why people don't trust white people. Imagine, right? I go to my friend and I ask him for money and I say, I'll pay you back in a week. He's like, wait, you'll pay me back in a week? Aren't you the one that said Mark Norman was funny? Nah, bro, get the fuck out of here. I ain't lending you no money. You know what I mean? Like, how I explained it earlier in my other video was that it's like these guys aren't good at comedy and they're jealous of the real good people of comedy. And so they have the money, you know, like the Applebees, the corporation, and they put their shit on every corner in the city. And the real funny comedy you could find on the back street behind the Applebees, but you'll never know it because you'll see that big shiny Applebees and you'll think because it's corporate, there's money behind it and it's good, but it's not, man. And if we keep, the problem is, here's the problem. If you keep pushing this shit out, nobody's going to believe us. Nobody's going to believe us. You know, when we say something is funny, you know, nobody's going to believe our opinion. If we support these guys, people are going to look at us and go, you're Joe Rogan fans? No, the comedy's not good at all. Don't try and lie to us. Don't try, you know what I mean? It's just, this is just putting a real low bar for comedy. And it's just like, it's almost, you know, Joe goes about the 250. It's like, no, anybody could be a comedian at this rate. Anybody. If this is a standard, man, I'm going to go up there and you could pay me thousands of dollars a night.
Faster than others. Then there are the comedians who without Rogan's support might have never made it at all. Cat Williams was one of the first to call it for what it is.
Joe don't want me on there. I need to be on Shannon. Joe got 6 comedians that never been funny. He want to push out.
In this video,
I'm surprised Joe doing that. You know, I always imagine that confrontation between Joe and Cat, like I always think of it as like the Pimp Chronicles and Joe like, who are the 6 comedians? Cat's like, this shit right here, this shit right here, this shit is crypto, you know what I mean? It's like, I imagine him saying like this, it's these 6 right here, it's right here, right, these 6 right here, you know? Anyways, tangent. I just love Cat Williams.
We'll examine Joe Rogan's impact on the current comedy scene and the comedians who have leveraged his influence to elevate their careers, starting with Ari Shaffir.
Get in there nice and deep.
Ari made his first appearance in 2010 on episode 3 of JRE. He was featured.
That's another thing about Ari that just really bothers me. It's like he doesn't respect anybody's time. Like, I get not liking people or not wanting to do something, but it's just like Ari's just rude, you know? And it's not like he doesn't know better or it's just like he's working through some shit. It's just like he's rude. He's been rude this whole time, and I just don't understand.
In 9 of the first 100 episodes, and since has appeared over 60 times, making him one of the podcast's most popular guests of all time. When Ari appeared on Tucker Carlson's podcast, he confirmed that there is benefits that come with being friends with Joe.
What's the effect on a stand-up's career of going on Rogan?
Well, one time is not as big as it once was because there's thousands of episodes. But guys like Theo Vaughn launched off like a good early appearance. Tim Dillon launched off that. Dave Smith, you know, really became well known.
I know that. All 3 good guys.
Yeah, yeah, and you do well on that. Joey Diaz, but like it was consistent ones, you know. It's not like, it's kind of like the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Where it's like, they say like, you go on there, you're a star.
Unlike many other comedians, Joe had financial stability when he started. Thanks to his roles in News Radio and Fear Factor, this allowed him to support and promote his friends' careers.
He was paying me $150 a set to MC. The standard rate was $50. He was paying $150, and then paying Joey Diaz would go with us also. He's paying him also $150, and the rate for the middle was $100. And then one day he called me and Joey, and he goes, hey, I'm sorry, I'm giving you guys a raise. But I'm like, no one's offering us that much. Definitely not more. He goes, no, you guys are headliners. You should make headliner money. I'm giving you $250 a set. So we'd come home with.
That's what I said, right? Joe Rogan from the beginning has just paid everybody. No wonder, you know, I can almost respect these guys too. I don't, you know, it's not so bad to ask somebody, you know, it's not so bad of Joe to be like, yo, I made you guys. I've given you the keys to the kingdom. Just don't tell anybody I'm not funny, okay? And they're like, yes, we will not do that. Nope, we sure won't. Nope. I mean, just don't make us watch. Nope, even if we have to watch your special, we will smile and say it's brilliant. And that's what it is, man. It's just, oh, man, it doesn't even matter. Here's the thing, right? I'm just a little bit jealous that I have to work so hard, and these guys write some of the worst fucking comedy imaginable, and they're rich as shit. It's unfair, but life's unfair, right? But this is really fucking unfair, man.
With like as much money as I would make pretty much on my own headlining, that I never got any work, by the way, but like it would have been the same. And also never touched my wallet and went out to the finest restaurants. You know, it was great.
While Ari is a core member of the Roganspehere, he isn't the most beloved. This isn't because he's not funny, but rather because his humor can sometimes be downright offensive, like when Kobe's helicopter went down. Ari is known for making jokes about people shortly after they pass away. While these jokes rarely upset anyone, his comments about Kobe, who is beloved by millions, really piss people off, despite the backlash from—
I mean, I think Ari Shaffir just has a problem with keeping his mouth shut, you know? It's like something happens and he gets totally something fucked up and offensive in his head, and inside his head he's like, my mind is telling me no, but my body, you know what I mean? And he just can't help it.
From his tweet, Ari doubled down with the video.
I know there's always a lot of like hate, pain in the world, and there's always a bunch of terrible stories, and every once in a while there's a good story. Good story.
Oh, that's fucked up. I don't think I ever saw this.
Got his today. Kobe Bryant is gone. I'm here in Charlotte, the home of the team that originally drafted him. Maybe he wouldn't have that chick in Denver if he had stayed in Charlotte with the Hornets.
Joe has always supported Ari. He was one of the first guests on JRE. He traveled with Joe on the road and was paid more than anyone else would have been paid. Joe's such a good friend, he somewhat felt responsible for Ari's tweet.
One part of me feels responsible. This is why. I convinced him that he could have an iPhone and that he could be okay. Just put a timer on it. I go, just put a timer on her phone. She can only use it for an hour a day. Just put a timer on your phone. And he should have stuck with a fucking flip.
While Joe may have found the tweet out of line, he ironically laughed when the
That's just kind of like, I sometimes, and it's not like it's anything, you know, different. I just guess I never saw it that way. But to explain, you know, after your friend just made fun of someone's dying like the day of, or the day, I don't know when it was really soon, right? And then to be like, oh, it's my fault, I gave him a phone. Come on, man. Sometimes I'm just seeing, like, the more I dive down this rabbit hole, the more like callous, like things you don't see. And it's not like we all can't be that way. I'm just a little bit sad, you know? It's like when you see your hero for your hero, who your hero really is, and it's not what you thought it was. But that's okay too. I understand that, but just how mean he can be about people and his friends, it's wild. But I can too, so what the fuck am I saying?
Topic of Ari spiking Bert Kreischer's drink with Molly was brought up. The story goes like this. Ari and Bert were about to record a podcast together. Before they started, Ari made a drink and secretly slipped Bert some Molly. Bert started to feel the effects halfway through the podcast. Instead of enjoying the moment, he began to panic. This caused a major rift between Ari, Bert, and Bert's family. But Joe still laughed and wanted to take Ari's side.
I don't believe your fake anger.
That's a real weird one.
There's no fake anger in this.
That's a weird one.
Here's what I did.
I like to be on your side with this, Ari.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. End of story. Thank you.
No, he said he's not.
on your side.
That's not what I heard.
Joe always stands by his friends.
That's like messed up, man. Like, I don't believe all the bad things about drugs because I know better. People don't do drugs because they're not fun. People do drugs because they're fun, right? That's just a whole nother topic. The thing is is also you have to be prepared for the drugs. You have to be willing, especially when you're doing things that are kind of psychoactive. And I don't know if Molly is psychoactive, but it definitely takes you to another place. It definitely alters your reality and how your body feels. You know, it makes you feel like you're walking on water in the heavenly realm and you're melting and it feels so good. And every little breeze and thing that hits your skin is like ignites the senses to like level 1000, right? But, you know, if I don't want to do that, then I don't want to do that. You know, sometimes you're in a bad spot or you have some stress. And when you do drugs with stress, it could just be a giant anxiety trip. You know, if you've ever done mushrooms and you didn't do it, you did it in a time in your life where there's turmoil and it's unstable. All you do is just woof down in a hole. And then you're down there for 6 hours like, oh my God, my cat hates me. My mom hates me. I'm going to lose my job tomorrow. And really you just need to like get through this and you'll be like, oh, you know, but to drug somebody unwillingly is really, really cruel because like I said, you have to be willing because the best thing if you want to do these kind of psychedelic drugs and stuff, especially psychedelic, like mind altering drugs, you need to be in a good headspace. Otherwise, it's just a ticket straight to hell. It is just a ticket. And I tell you, if you've ever been on a trip that's gone bad or just gets overcome with anxiety, it is like the worst hours of your life you will feel. You just feel like you're getting drugged down into hell. So like, I can understand, Bert. Like, that's fucked up. You don't just do that without someone's permission. I got some rules, not many, but just don't drug people without permission. It's a really cruel thing to do.
Even when they do something as terrible as drugging another friend. Bert wouldn't have been in that situation if Joe hadn't urged him to quit the Travel Channel and go all in on comedy.
Rogan called me up. He was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm drunk, I'm high, I'm on a motorcycle, running through rice paddies in Vietnam. Sun's setting, there's water buffalo everywhere. And he's like, you're the machine. Rogan's like, get the away from Travel Channel. This is who you are. You're a storyteller. You got to talk about this on stage. Get that your show sucks. Focus on podcasting.
So that's what Bert did. He went all in on comedy and podcasting. He became a regular on the Joe Rogan Experience, appearing on the podcast 37 times, making him one of the top 10 guests in terms of appearances.
So just a little side note. I understand the appeal of Bert Kreischer. Like, my opinion of Bert Kreischer, I don't think he's funny. I don't like his comedy, and I'm not really attracted to Bert Kreischer. But Bert Kreischer is kind of not as cool and not as legendary, but he is a version of Will Ferrell's character in Old School. You know, Frank the Tank, and when the guy walks in and the guy's like, do one. He's like, no, I can't. He's like, do one. He's like, all right. He's like, you're going to do one. Like, Bert Kreischer is that fun, lovable party machine. And that's what attracts people to Bert Kreischer. If you're wondering, it's just like, for me, he's not the Will Ferrell. The Will Ferrell character, you know, I'd be ripping beer bongs with him. But this version of that character, I'm not a big fan of. But I understand why people are drawn to Bert Kreischer. Because everyone wants to have a little fun, ignore, and have a party. But in the long term, you know, the Bert Kreischer stuff just doesn't last. And you got to, like, go back to the gym and get in shape and get sober. You know what I mean? So I get the appeal to that.
Every time someone appears on JRE, they receive what is known as the Rogan bump. So you can imagine what 37 Rogan bumps can do for someone's career. In the beginning, the JRE community loved Bert. He had tons of crazy stories, with one of the craziest being The Machine. As you might have guessed, it was Joe Rogan who convinced him to make it a part of his act.
The way I met you is the last way you should meet Joe. I went up to your house, you were at the door already, and you were like, hey man, I go, hey man, big fan, I got to see the deprivation tank, your dog, and the pool table. Then we need to get high, and then I'm ready to do this. And you were like, caught off guard. You're like, okay. You took me back. I met Johnny Cash. You took me down to the deprivation tank. We played around a pool, went out to that back where the swing set and the chickens ended up being. Smoked. Red Band showed up. It changed my life. You said, hey, man, you got to tell that machine story every time you get on stage. If you hadn't done that, I don't know what the you're doing. If you know that, that's what happened that first night, right? So I tell the machine story to your podcast, and you go, it's one of the best stories. It's one of the best stories ever told. You go, ladies and gentlemen. You go, you tell it on stage? I go, no. You go, you got to start telling that on stage. hey, everybody, and you talk to you go, he is from now on known as the Machine. You yell the Machine at every one of his shows until make him tell it on stage.
Some people are turned off by Bert's forwardness, but you have to hand it to him. He understood the significance of being in the Roganspehere before it was even a concept. From that original appearance on JRE, and by taking Joe's advice about the Machine story, Bert transformed it into a multi-million-dollar career. He now has
Red
Netflix
Rocks
specials, multiple podcasts, and even a movie called The Machine. A few years ago, his tour brought in over $24 million, and the Fully Loaded tour is still going strong today. As Bert has grown more famous, he's become noticeably more disconnected from reality. An entire economy has developed on YouTube centered around Bert hate, much of it stemming from him making statements like this.
It's so funny, a comic's brain is so different than a pedestrian's brain.
The more people see of Bert...
Wait, what's a pedestrian? These people, this is the thing, man. And it's like this in everything. It's like, it's like this in jujitsu too. I noticed when I first started jujitsu, I'm a big dude, right? I'm a big dude and I used to wrestle. So I knew how to like avoid some, getting takedown, sprawl, stuff like that. And I went in and I beat up some of these jujitsu guys. I didn't beat them up, but I rolled with them and they couldn't submit me. And I may have got a rear naked choke on one or two. That was like the depth of my knowledge. And they were mad at me, right? They were really mad at me. And they would come at me so hard. I remember one time I had a class and it was like a late night class. Everybody left and they asked me to stay to roll and there was nobody in there. It was like I was about to get jumped. And, two guys, they made me go back-to-back rounds, right? So I go in, the first guy was the instructor. He was a black belt, a new black belt. He came at me. He couldn't submit me. He ran into me and then pushed me right up against the mats and tried to take my collars and push his fists up into my throat. And I just couldn't believe it. And then the timer went off for that. I got a 15-second break. And then I had to do the next guy who was a purple belt. And then they did this to me for like 20 minutes. I was exhausted and they didn't beat me. They didn't submit me. I didn't quit because I knew what they were doing. Later on, I found out the guy, I said, remember that night y'all did that to me? I was like, what were y'all doing? That was kind of crazy. And they're like, we were trying to teach you a lesson. And that's how I feel about like this whole thing they created, this comedy path, everything like that. It's like, they're trying to keep people out because they shouldn't be there. They're not the comedy standard and they're not the best and they don't have like a natural talent. I had a natural talent for jujitsu. I've always had a natural talent for combat sports. Right? And if I would have dedicated myself, I think I probably could have done pretty well, at least on the amateur circuit. You know what I mean? I did amateur boxing for a little while. I did all right. But the thing is it's just like, man, they're just creating their own language, this whole fake philosophy to keep people out. I don't believe in this path that Rogan always talks about. You don't have to wait 10 years. 10 years? 10 years. What? Think of the things you could learn in 10 years. I saw a video and they were talking about brain surgeons. So you're telling me it takes the same amount of time to be a comedian that it does to take a brain surgeon. Like if you can't tell a joke when a guy can learn how to operate on someone's brain in the same time? Like, come on. I think they're just creating this thing to keep people out, and I don't know why. I can say, like, at the end of the day, they're not funny, and it's like they don't want the, the mask pulled off, right? You could say that, but I feel like it's something like, why would you do that in the first place? Why would you not get better at comedy? It's like me in the jiu-jitsu studio, right? I could have taken those beatings and knowing after that night when they kept me there and they tried to teach me a lesson, I could have just stopped. But my thing was like, well, I should go to the gym so my cardio gets better. I should buy some instructionals off of BJJ Fanatics and watch them in my free time and practice on my jiu-jitsu dummy. So I'm better. So the next time I go to the gym, I know how to slip into that position a little better. I know how it feels. I know how to respond. That was my thing, is like, get better. But I don't understand. Instead, these guys aren't getting better. Rogan, in 6 years, you're talking about 60% of the way to your path. Those were your jokes? No wonder it took you 10 years. I'm just mad that the gatekeeping. It's starting to get to me a little bit. I'm sorry.
the less they seem to like him. He's loud, constantly interrupts others, and his stories become more embellished over time. It's even reached the point where Rogan has called him out.
I drove past it and I go, oh, they must have put someone else's belly on me or photoshopped it.
Yeah, like
and
this is like when you go like, I have legit the best shoulders.
I do. Hold on, I do. I have legit great shoulders. Like great fucking shoulders. Yeah.
No, you don't.
Joe, they're ripping through this shirt right now.
Yeah, but you say
No, you
things
just
and you
bought
don't
a boy
really mean
shirt.
it, right? Like
No, I
when you
kinda mean
say
it. I
things
kinda
and you
mean
know
it.
they're
I
not
got you.
true.
While Bert receives a lot of hate online, it pales in comparison to the most hated figure in the Roganspehere, Brendan Schaub. Like Bert, Joe Rogan is the reason Brendan Schaub got into comedy. At the time of the infamous podcast, Schaub was a UFC heavyweight whose career was on a downward trajectory. Schaub was already discussing quitting with Rogan and Callen, so they decided to have the conversation on a podcast.
The reality of your skill set and where you at now, I don't see you beating the elite guys. It's not that you don't try hard. It's not that you're not dedicated. It's not that you're not disciplined. It's not that you're not intelligent. There's shit that other people can do that you can't do.
Joe wasn't trying to be rude, he was just being brutally honest, something it seemed others weren't doing for Brendan. This included Brian Callen, who was the one to suggest that Brendan could make it in comedy.
What I care about is the fact that you have a future in other things and you're really good at. Like, you're really funny.
Dude, you know how many you know how many pictures that I've gotten sent to me that say, don't put me in a sauna, make me my way out?
I know.
He say funny shit. Dude,
If two
You know, man, I learned something in life. You know, if you've ever had one of these conversations where you felt it was obligated to tell your friend that they shouldn't do something and you think you know it's better for him, like granted, you know, right or wrong, like somebody didn't tell him, you know, I'm just going to say something about it. Like, you can feel compelled, whatever, but a lot of time I don't want to be that guy no more. Like, I'm starting to understand something. I am starting to understand something right here. I understand why Joe Rogan's friends, besides like getting the good career and the money, I understand being the guy that goes, yo, hey, you suck at comedy. Being that guy, you're fucked. That's such a position because then Brian's just like, Joe, what the Joe, God damn, Joe. So Brian's trying to turn it around. Like, I just want you to be well for the things you're good at. Like, you're really funny, bruh. And Rogan's like, yeah, you know me. You didn't get no. It's just crazy. And Brian's like, yeah. Did you forget about that dick ass thing you just told me? It's like, sometimes we have to let people be, you know? We have to let people be, and I don't know. We feel connected to people. We feel emotional. We don't want people to get hurt, but man, I don't know. I'm just saying it's not a fun position to be in at all.
professional comedians were telling you that you were funny, why wouldn't you give it a shot? It sure beats the line of work that he was in before, and with the way things were going, it wasn't a moment too soon. After the podcast with Rogan and Callen, Schaub retired from fighting and started podcasting full-time. If any one person's relationship with Rogan is a testament to the Rogan bump, it's Brendan Schaub. Between JRE and The Fight Companion, Schaub has appeared more than 91 times, more than anyone else, trailing only Eddie Bravo, Brian Callen, and Ari Shaffir. Joe Rogan is like the American Idol of the comedy world. His influence can launch you to new heights overnight, allowing you to skip over the decade of grinding it typically takes most comedians to achieve success. This allowed Brendan to start his career with guaranteed spots at local comedy clubs and even go on worldwide tours with sold-out crowds. It seems like Brendan has a knack for meeting the right people at the right time. Around the same time, he met Theo Von, and together they started the podcast King and the Sting. In a short amount of time, and by the end of 2018, Brendan had 3 successful podcasts and was hanging around with some of the biggest names in comedy, and even released his first comedy special on Showtime called You'd Be Surprised.
You're going to see a giant improvement in your set. If people saw your first one to now. The first one, I would have probably tried to talk you out of it, but I already talked you out of fighting. Yeah. And I was like, I can't talk him out of this, too. But you could have. But Showtime.
Most comedians take...
Why do you take joy in that, man? You know, there's things of your friends that are funny, right? But that's a pain point for him, you know? That's a pain point. And Joe just seems to go for the sting, man.
5, 10, or even 15 years to develop enough quality material for a full-length stand-up comedy special. Comedy fans made their feelings known as his IMDb rating is one of the lowest comedy specials of all time.
Excuse me, god damn, girl, shit. Ooh, I can't wait. BTE is right. Big dude energy. I can't wait to get my hands on him. That boy is thick.
Yeah, that was the intro to his first stand-up special. Not even kidding. Very bold.
Bold. Very bold.
Dude, think about having a Showtime special when you're 2 years in, dude.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah, very bold.
It's big balls, dude.
Joe eventually admitted that he knew Schaub wasn't ready to release a special, but he still allowed him to promote his comedy to the millions of JRE listeners. This included Brendan's second special, Gringo Poppy, which he claimed would be much better than the first. But the critics didn't agree. It was even worse than his first special, with the IMDb rating the worst comedy special of all time. This is the...
I honestly, you know, what do you say about Brendan Schaub? Like, I feel like, what do you say? You know, what do you say about the guy? I don't think there's anything left to say. I think the more interesting dynamic is the relationship of him and Joe, and like that dynamic. I think that's more interesting. Like, if you want to dunk on somebody, sure. But the other thing around this is this guy, here's the thing. All of this stuff even the stuff that I make, right? All of this stuff that we're making, right? I'm not stupid. The people go, are you farming this content? Not really. I'm just making it because I know they're farming my content. You know why? Because this is just a promotion for them. At the end of the day, I'm not convincing anybody of anything they don't already believe. Maybe I point some evidence in the right direction, but they're going to investigate themselves, which is why this stuff doesn't get taken down, which is why we're allowed to do this. This is done because they benefit off of it. You can sit there and be like, Brendan Schaub's so stupid. He's the worst comedian, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, he wants that stuff because it keeps him relevant. It's when we stop talking about them that they stop making money, you know? So don't get it twisted. We're not farming them. They're farming us. Trust me, because this is making people go look at their stuff and decide for themselves. I'm here just trying to sort out my feelings about all of this, and it's hella interesting. I'm not going to lie. It's interesting. It just is. And I like interesting things. Who would have thought?
The second most traumatizing thing to happen in Dallas, right behind the Kennedy assassination. It's all Rogan's fault. Rogan gave a comedy red carpet to a few dead brain cells. While Joe shouldn't be held accountable for all the hate Brendan gets, he is largely the reason Brendan has the platform he does. If anything, it just goes to show how good of a friend Rogan is. If you're his friend, he's got your back, whether you're funny or not. There's no better example of this than with Brian Callen. Joe and Brian have been friends since the time Joe still...
Here's something, and I'm not completely sure, but what I do know, because I've heard him talk about this and heard him, I believe he's done like even shows and a little tour and stuff. But if I am right in how I think about this, I could be totally wrong and you guys probably know better, but it seems like Eddie Bravo has kept his distance as he's started to get into comedy. I'm sure it's a few years now because I don't remember when he was talking about I'm going to be doing a show here or whatever. But have you noticed that Eddie Bravo has distanced himself from that? Do you think he knows something? Or is Eddie Bravo like, just like he was really great at jiu-jitsu. He still is great at jiu-jitsu, but before, 10th Planet, like Eddie Bravo was beating some of the best people, beating one of the Gracies, right? In Abu Dhabi or something like that. And so I wonder, maybe Eddie Bravo doesn't use his friendship with Rogan because he wants to get good at it outside of influence, so it's pure, or does Rogan keep Eddie Bravo away? That's the question I would like to answer, because if Eddie Bravo is staying away so it stays pure, I totally respect that.
Still had hair. Callen has appeared on JRE 86 times. Despite their strong relationship, Joe often gets legitimately angered by the things Callen says.
Yeah,
however,
every podcast.
It might not be that Joe is angered by Callen specifically, but rather he has a...
Dude, he treats Callen like, outside of everybody else, the way he treats Callen, he just gets short with him, like basically tells him to shut the fuck up. I never like it when Callen's on because it's just a weird dynamic. And then Callen is just like, yep. Okay. And he's always sucking up. And I just feel bad. It's like, Callen, you don't got to take it, man.
Hard time understanding certain aspects of comedy, like when Callen was pretending to be a tough guy.
I got bullied for a full year, and it turned me into a fucking, if somebody tried to bully me, I'll show up at your house and kill you. That's what happens. I get so angry.
I'm not buying that even when he talks remotely.
Like that. I hate when...
Hey,
That's
bro,
not true.
You bully me.
If I
you know
bully
you
you
try
up,
bullying me right now, motherfucker.
Problem
Hold
is,
on, let me
here's
handle
the
this.
problem. Here's the problem. You've talked to too many guys that let you say shit like that, and then it becomes like vernacular.
Callen may not be the best comedian, but he is a decent actor. I think that's where the communication breakdown occurred because Brian addressed the clip on an episode of The Fighter and the Kid.
Oh yeah, that was when I was fucking joking about what I do to somebody, and Rogan took me seriously. Remember when I said I'll show up at your house and
But sometimes you'll be doing a bit, and I know it's a bit because we speak the same language for over 10 years now.
Yeah.
I'll know it's a bit, and I'll entertain it.
I was about to come at you. I was about to go, and you show up at my house.
I know.
The bit was, and I'll you up.
But he cut you off
cut
there.
me off, and he goes,
So it looks
No, I've seen the
serious.
clip, and I again, the way you get cut off, it's
I just saw the clip, and it said, I saw that people were taking it seriously.
Joe talks to a variety of people, scientists, astronomers, rock stars, so it seems like he sometimes forgets when his comedy friends are making a joke. He especially doesn't like to joke about the UFC, like when Callen was pitching possible opponents for Schaub's UFC comeback.
He's throwing Derek Lewis out there with no gloves.
Good Lord.
But wait, hold on. Just hear me out.
Do you want to die?
Sir, hear me out.
What?
I'm just talking about just shoot a blast double.
Shut the
Take
f-
the
up.
ground, and then we got
Shut
that.
the f- up. Shut the
Callen has released 4 specials over the last decade, but none were picked up by a major streaming network. All were released directly to YouTube, with the most watched still not receiving 1 million views. For whatever reason, Callen's comedy never gained popularity, but
The reason is, I think Callen, like as far as Callen, the reason Callen doesn't come off or people don't look to him or even see him as funny is because of his appearances on JRE. Callen, it doesn't matter what episode it was, early or the latest one, Callen just looks like, I don't know a better way to say this, but Joe Rogan's bitch. And when you come off as somebody's bitch, people just aren't looking for you for anything, really. You know what I mean? People are going to lose interest in you because he's just always like kissing Callen. But I think on the other hand, I feel bad for Callen, Oh man, that's not good.
thanks to the Rogan effect, Callen has managed to maintain a career in comedy, even using Joe to grow his other line of business, flip-flops.
Put your toes on.
Take
those off.
Shut the f- up.
Take the drugs off.
Listen to him. Listen to him.
Come
So
on.
silly.
Well,
I
the
know
three
you
of
want
us-
to promote your goofy
I'm
flip.
not trying to-
Yeah, see, I hate these interactions. I just hate it. It's just, I hate it. This is why I can't listen to the Callen ones, man. I hate it. It's just, it's always like, you're just waiting for Callen and Rogan, and like Rogan eventually every episode is just like, shut the fuck up, bitch.
I'm not
Settle
promoting him. I
down.
just got
You
him
can't even
for
call
you.
them toe holds.
Feel him under your
Put your
feet.
toe holds on.
Feel him for you. Feel him under your feet. Come on.
While it may seem like Joe Rogan has only helped unfunny people gain fame through comedy, he has also supported multiple comedians who are truly talented, but might have never reached the fame they deserved, like Joey Diaz. Early in his career, Joe Rogan took Ari and Joey Diaz on the road with him. He not only paid them better than most headliners, but would also work around Joey's addiction issues, hiring another comic to fill in just in case Joey didn't show up.
So for a while, he just brought Joey Diaz with him. And then, and Joey was back then. And sometimes he just would not show up. And he could bring a local, but you got to be supportive to the scene. You got to help guys that are struggling. And he'd bring just Joey. And then Joey he'd get to the airport and he's like, Joey, where are you? No one answer his phone. And then he'd land in the new city. He's like, where are you? He goes, something came up. I missed my flight. And it's like, I was at the airport. You missed your flight. He just, coke excuses,
Yeah.
And so he's just like, he's unreliable. He might not show up. It became too much. But instead of saying, you can't come anymore, he goes, I'll just bring a second opener. So if you don't come, I've still got somebody. It's nuts to have an employee go, I just don't show up a lot. Like, I guess I'll hire 2 employees then.
Then there's Theo Vaughn. Theo undoubtedly achieved success on his own without the help of Joe Rogan. Rather than using JRE to gain fame, Theo became successful enough to be invited on the podcast.
2 Thanksgivings ago, we had 2 owls at my sister's house.
I saw one last night, actually. Pulled into the driveway and an owl took off. It was big, too.
It's gross, I think.
Owls?
The meat.
You guys ate owls?
Yeah.
I don't think that's legal. You probably shouldn't say that on the podcast.
Well, I didn't have a lot. I think I even spit it out. I'm not even joking.
It's like
yeah.
Bill Clinton when he smoked that weed.
But see how much little meat is on him? You think there's more.
Theo was able to leverage his...
I think Theo Vaughn is a great conversationalist, but I have to say, I watched that special. I think it was on Netflix. I was sad. I was really, really sad. I could just listen to Theo Von talk and like have him figure out his brain, right? You know, on a podcast, it's great when he starts riffing and just the random shit he says is great. But I don't think it works out so well on stage. Or maybe he just needs like a writer friend to like guide him. Because that special he did was, it's just like, they've all been bad. Ari Shaffir's was bad. Mark Norman's was bad. Theo Von's was bad. Shane Gillis's. Shane was good. You know, it's just like Bert Kreischer, like, it's, I don't know.
His appearance on JRE to grow his own podcast. After his third appearance on JRE, he strategically dropped an episode featuring Jordan Peterson on his own channel, which remains one of the most watched podcasts on his channel to this day. And there's Shane Gillis. Shane would have undoubtedly achieved.
I don't like Jordan Peterson. I just think these people look too much into things. My reality, and don't look, I've had several biases and I've fought for things that I don't fight for anymore, right? Opinions. But I just don't care. You know, I just can't care. Life is really hard. Why do these people look into these things like, oh, this is going to ruin our country? What do you mean it's going to ruin our country? A couple 100 years ago, we were at war on our country. You know what I mean? Like, surely we could get through this. You know what I mean? It's like people got through the medieval age. What do you mean? You know? And the problem, a lot of these comedians that are on the Rogan thing, is they forgot about comedy and they started getting political. Shane Gillis never took his eye off the comedy. He never chased after the riches and the fame, and like, he just stayed a regular guy. And I know Shane might not be your taste, but you could see funny in Shane, even if he's not your taste.
Achieve success on his own, but he knew long before he even met Joe that being a guest on JRE was a milestone he needed to reach to get to the next level.
Me and Shane combined could beat up any comedian in the business. We're not worried
Except
about
you, St. Rogies.
Except St. Rogies.
You're too powerful for us, and we would never put a hand on you.
True.
Please help! Help! God damn it, what's taking so long? I need your help! Dying out here, Joe. God damn it.
Even after Shane was fired from SNL, it took Joe over a year to have him on JRE, and it took convincing from two of his friends that he helped prop up over the years.
We recommended Shane Gillis for a year.
How long did we text back and forth? Ari one time.
This guy not taking this guy.
And we're like, yo, we got to send him the Toyota Isis. And then Ari's like, I'll send it. You reply and be like, how funny is this, Ari?
Yep.
Listen, I get to things.
Oh my God, you're right.
I get to things in the perfect amount of time.
Once Shane finally made it to JRE, he didn't waste the opportunity. He's now a regular, has brought Matt McCusker on, and is a fixture on the best sub-podcast called Protect Our Parks. So yeah, the saying, it's not what you know, but who you know, is spot on when it comes to Joe Rogan's influence in comedy.
Give me that old-time religion!
There you go, guys. There you go. There you go. Apologia Comedia, the Roganspehere, unfunny comedians Joe made famous. You know, through this video, having to watch it, I went from, you know, I'm really interested in this research to, man, I really just messed up on life. I could have been doing this all along. You know, I think of it sometimes, and it's like that. You see your boss that doesn't know shit, or, you know, stuff like that, or you see a guy that just, and everybody's buying his product and it's horseshit, you know, and that's just how life is. Life is unfair sometimes, and sometimes unfunny comedians become successful. What are you going to do? Because no matter how hard you cry about it, there's always going to be another Applebees on the corner.